Okay, well, I suppose first I'll caveat this slightly by saying that my interest in film doesn't necessarily come from academic sources, not initially anyway. I was a bit of a film buff as a younger viewer, and I continue to be so. So it is very much a hobby. But obviously, now that I do a lot more cultural geography, I've found film becomes into the literature a lot more. And I suppose rather than pinpoint actual literatures, I think I'm going to pinpoint actual films. I think it's more an interesting discussion that way. And one of a lot of the work is, for example, Blade Runner. There's a lot of work around that, which people picked up on it. People like David Harvey picked up on it as a way of showing urban environments and future dystopic environments. So it was around that kind of time, I suppose, in the 80s that films became very important ways in which people used them to analyse geographical phenomena. How it works? Okay, well, for me, the film geography idea, or the geographies of film, it's about decoding almost geographical ideas through the visuals of film. So, okay, Blade Runner is a really good example. There are lots of different metaphors used in the film. There are lots of different visual cues that are shown, which you can extrapolate out as denoting geographical ideas. So, for example, at the very beginning of the film, we see the sprawl of Los Angeles in the future, lots of industry, pollution. So there's lots of things to be said there about the nature of the city as an industrial site. There's tall buildings denoting corporate power. There's lots of flying cars and police vehicles, which denotes the ability of power, police power, corporate power to move across the city in a smooth way, as opposed to the striated space which we see later on in the film, through Orientalist eyes. So there's lots of ideas about Orientalism in the film. It's got a lot of the street culture is heavily Oriental, Chinese, Japanese, Oriental characters and things on the neon signs. So there's lots of visual cues and metaphors within the film that are used to denote particular ideals that geographers talk about, quite regularly. But it just does it in a very poetic and sort of visual way. And I think that many films like that, you can tease out geographical ideas just through how the visuals are on screen and what they actually mean, what they kind of denote. So Blade Runner is very archetypal in that respect.
Mm.
I think that any geographical decoding of a film will be enhanced by knowledge of the technical aspects of filmmaking. So what a director was trying to get at with that shot, for example, or what a cinematographer was trying to show by lighting it in a particular way, or showing that particular landscape. I think that understanding the visual cues and the visual metaphors and the technical metaphors in film, if you like, what they meant or what the person behind them actually meant, I think that's obviously going to enhance geographical knowledge from films, but I don't necessarily think it's essential. I think that film geographies, if you like, geographies of film, is a subdiscipline or growing subdiscipline in its own right, and I don't necessarily think you need to understand the technical aspects of film narrative. It would obviously help, like all interdisciplinary studies, it will be helped, but you can come at it as long as you've got a good understanding of the geography, literature, and the way, that it's that in which you're actually trying to enrich through film. And I think that with a good set of geographical eyes, you can use film very well in human geography debates. Give tips. Yes, I suppose watch films. I mean, what I find the best films that tell the best geography stories tend to be outside of the mainstream. A lot of that's not always the case. There are some, like Blade Runner again, a good example. It's a big Hollywood film, lots of good themes you can draw from it. But your average blockbuster, let's say, Harry Potter or whatever it may be, you know, I think there's more interesting stories to be told in the less, you know, in some of the more marginal films, and particularly films from outside of America as well. You know, I'm quite into Korean film at the moment, and I think there's a lot of really interesting stories to be told through Korean film, for example, and some of the ways in which Korean filmmakers make films is very different to the way Hollywood makers make films, for example. And so there's ways in which you could perhaps argue that there's different cultures of filmmaking as well. So there's lots of different arguments about it. So I would encourage students to watch films beyond the mainstream, ones that perhaps aren't in the multiplex cinemas, and also to always watch films with a critical eye. Always, you know, watch them maybe once or twice to sort of make sure, or more than once, twice or even three times, to make sure that you know, you're not engrossed too much in the story and looking at the geography of it all. So yeah, it's a question of being able to sort of decode films while you're watching them, and that just comes through practice. Just, you know, watch more and more films. And obviously read more and more as well, but it's tough. But yeah, it's I suppose my one tip would be
That's how it works.
yeah, just watch films, as many different kinds of films as you can.